All right, now let's see Angular compiler in action. So if you open up package.json, under dev dependencies, look, here we have a dependency to angular/compiler-CLI. This is the Angular compiler package that takes a significant part of our vendor bundle. Now let me show you how to run this compiler. So here in the terminal, we can run Angular compiler from node modules folder. So node _modules dot bin, that's where the binary files are located. And here we run ngc, that's Angular compiler. Now let's see what happens. All right, Angular compiler compiled our components and their templates. Now back in VS Code, you can see we have 25 new files here. Here is an example. In the home folder, next to our CSS file, you can see we have a new file, .shim.ngstyle.ts. Let's have a look. So currently we don't have any CSS for this home component. That's why this array is empty. But if we did have any styles, Angular compiler would export these styles using a constant here. Let's take a look at another example. Back in the home folder, we have this file, home.component.ngFactory. So for every component that we have referenced in our application, Angular compiler generates an ngFactory file. Look at this code here. This is the combination of our component and its template. So we can see a little bit of our markup here. So earlier we had this text align center applied to our div in our home component. Here we have an image. You can see the source attribute of this image. So this is the code that Angular compiler generates at runtime. And of course, this is TypeScript, so it should be transpiled to JavaScript and then it will be executed. And the result of this is our home component rendered in the DOM. Now, as you can see, this code is very cryptic, so it's not designed, it's not produced for humans to read. I just wanted to show you what is happening at runtime when you load an Angular application. So Angular component kicks in and it generates a bunch of ngFactory files for each component referenced in our application. Now let me show you something interesting. I'm going to go to home.html and change this title to title 2. Obviously, we don't have a field with that name. So now let's see what happens when we run Angular compiler. Back in the terminal, I run ngc. Here we get a compilation error. Property title 2 does not exist on type home component. So this is the benefit of ahead of time compilation. We can catch the errors in our templates earlier. Now, in the real world, we don't have to run ngc like how I showed you here. This was purely for demonstration. Instead, we're going to use Angular CLI to build our application for production, and Angular CLI will internally run Angular compiler. And that's what I'm going to show you in the next lecture.